If you've been scrolling through all-terrain mobility scooters for weeks and still feel stuck between options that either look too flimsy or cost more than they should, this one might finally break the tie. I spent time digging into what actually matters once you're out in the driveway or on a park path, not just the specs on paper, but how it handles real surfaces, how much setup hassle you'll really face, and whether it's worth the price when you're not just cruising the sidewalk. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. This isn't one of those scooters that looks like it belongs in a showroom and falls apart after 2 weeks on uneven ground. The Kindred all-terrain mobility scooter is built around a 1000W motor and a 4-wheel platform, which is the kind of setup you usually only see in higher-end models. That motor gives it the grunt to handle grass, gravel, and even light sand without bogging down, which is exactly where cheaper 3-wheel scooters start to struggle. If you live in a place with changing terrain or you're planning longer rides beyond smooth pavement, that difference becomes noticeable fast. The comfort side of things is handled by an adjustable captain's seat and armrests that actually move, not just the basic padded seat you get with entry-level options. That might not sound like much until you're on a half-hour ride and realize your lower back isn't screaming like it does on the cheaper models. The suspension isn't air-level luxury, but it's enough to smooth out small bumps without feeling like you're riding a go-kart on a cobblestone street. For daily errands or a slow roll around the neighborhood, it's a practical upgrade over the rock-hard seats you see elsewhere. Safety features are where this scooter quietly outpaces a lot of competitors. It's got LED headlights and turn signals built in, which sounds basic until you're crossing a dimly lit parking lot at dusk and you realize half the scooters in this price range don't even include them. There's also a rear anti-tip system, which is one of those things that feels unnecessary until you hit a curb or a patch of loose gravel and suddenly appreciate the extra stability. These aren't flashy upgrades. They're the kind of details that keep you from wishing you'd spent a little more on something safer. Now, the trade-offs start to show up when you look at the waterproof cover. It's advertised as waterproof, and it does shed light rain, but if you're planning to leave it outside in a downpour or drive through puddles, don't expect it to keep everything bone dry. It's more of a splash shield than a full raincoat, so if you live somewhere wet, you'll still want to bring it inside, or at least pop the cover on before the skies open up. That's a small, but real limitation once you move past the marketing language. Another place this scooter shows its limits is in tight spaces. The turning radius is decent for a 4-wheeler, but it's still wider than a 3-wheeler, so if you're trying to maneuver in a narrow hallway or a crowded store aisle, you'll need to plan your route. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's worth measuring your doorways and garage beforehand so you're not stuck with a scooter that won't fit where you need it most. Who should actually buy this? If you're a senior or someone with mobility challenges who wants to stay independent without relying on family for every errand, this scooter gives you the range and stability to handle real-world terrain without breaking the bank. It's also a solid pick if you're buying for someone else and you want something that won't feel like a toy. This one looks and feels like a serious piece of equipment, not a glorified wheelchair. Who should skip it? If you're mostly on smooth pavement and you don't need the extra power or suspension, you can save money by going with a lighter 3-wheeler. Those are easier to store and cheaper to replace down the line. Also, if you're over 300 pounds, double-check the weight limit. This one's rated for heavy-duty use, but there's a cutoff, and pushing it isn't worth the risk. The value here comes from the motor and the safety features, not from bells and whistles. You're not getting Bluetooth or a fancy LCD screen, but you are getting something that'll get you from point A to point B without leaving you stranded on uneven ground. For the price, it's one of the few scooters in this range that actually feels like it was designed for daily use, not just a quick trip to the mailbox. If you've been on the fence because you're worried about hidden costs or whether it'll hold up after a few months, this one's worth a closer look. Link is in the description if you want to check the product.